Today, we're going to be addressing a very important topic called taking back your power. And the reason this topic is important is because as international medical graduates, we tend to get carried into this wave of doubt, self doubt, wave of losing our identity, losing our sense of purpose. And I've encountered people who have been affected, whose mental health has been deeply affected by these situations. So, what we want to talk about is why this happens and what we can do about it. So, we'll be talking about our identity, purpose, communication, growth, and the role that mentors can have when it comes to taking back your power. It's important to think about who you are outside of medicine. If you're not the most clever doctor in the room who comes up with the diagnosis in difficult situations, if you're not passing exams easily, if people are not immediately recognizing your value as someone who's contributing to the team, bringing deep value, who are you? What do you bring? What have you done? What are your interests in life? And those questions are really important because when you think about that and you get to a situation where you're struggling with things you never struggled with in the past, then in those situations, you're then able to say, hang on, I know who I am, and these circumstances, these things that are happening outside of me, they do not define me. But we need to think about the purpose for all of the things we're doing. You could have chosen to stay back in your home country. You didn't. You chose to relocate to the UK. You could have chosen any specialty. You chose to work in the specialty that you are working in. You applied for jobs in a specific hospital where you're working. How does all of that fit in with your grand plan? How does the choice of the UK, the choice of the hospital, the choice of the specialty, how does it fit in with your grand master plan such that if things are happening, say you're finding it difficult working with your colleagues or working in this team, you're not going to walk away because of these difficulties, because in your mind you're thinking about this really important purpose, this really important why, and you can ride the wave or make decisions based on how it all aligns with your overall goals and plans. It's difficult to navigate challenges when you're not clear why you're doing the things that you're doing. So I would spend time just thinking about your purpose, thinking about how the things you're doing fit into the grand master plan that you've got. One of the difficulties of being an IMG is communication. It comes easily to some people and it doesn't come easily to others. So to some people, the conversations just flow. You're able to join banter. You're able to say hi to people, talk about weekends, talk about cats, talk about dogs, things like that. It comes easily and naturally. To some people, it's very difficult. It's not part of their culture. They're not used to it. So it can take time to build on this skill. And with like any other skill, practice makes perfect. So picking up conversations with people in shops, at the till, at the bus stop, on the bus, in taxis, picking up these conversations can help you develop your skill. International medical graduates may find that they struggle with how people perceive them. So people speak to you like they haven't had any cause to speak to you before, and the first time they speak to you, you're wondering why they've spoken to you like that. One of the things that I would pay attention to is your appearance. Think about the way you look. Make sure that your appearance commands the respect that you want to receive. Think about your body language. People talk about posturing a lot. So are you sitting hunched in the corner, not making eye contact, or are you sitting upright and engaging and projecting your voice when you speak? Now, I'm saying all these things, trust me, the reason I can talk about all these things is because I have experienced them. I have been the one sitting in the corner and not making eye contact and wanting people to just leave me alone because I don't want to engage. But I know the impact that has on relationships. So it's really important for us as international medical graduates to be aware of what our appearance does, of our body language, how we engage in conversations. Now, during the COVID pandemic, I had the opportunity to join the community of Black women in health, and they were running these every weekend training programs. And that was the first time I had any formal training on assertiveness. And I found that it was very powerful for me when I got back to work because I was then able to recognize when people would speak to me in ways I didn't appreciate, ask me to do tasks that didn't contribute directly to my role, which other people were being paid to do. So I then had the skill required to be able to say, hang on, I don't think that that's something I can do. Can you ask such and such a person to pick that up and I'll come back to you? So, going further from that, I attended an advanced communication skills course. And again, I got some more training on assertiveness and I saw the role that it played. Being able to speak like this, being able to communicate like this is so important to get us ahead. And I would highly recommend anyone who's struggling with that communication situation where you're not able to articulate or you're not able to understand why people speak to you in a certain way and you keep being on the receiving end of this, I would strongly recommend you take an assertiveness skills course so you can draw a line in the sand and say, I will not be spoken to like this. Please refrain from speaking to me like this in future and things like that. Now, those kind of conversations have to be well timed and you have to be aware of the situation. I've been in positions where people have come in to assert themselves when we're about to start a case in theatre. That is absolutely not the time to do things like that. So you should be aware of the situation, be aware of when you want to have those conversations. Communication is the bedrock of everything that you're going to achieve in your career. So if you think that you are not well equipped to communicate in a way that gets your thoughts across, then it is absolutely key to get some training. And we'll come to a point where we'll be talking about the opportunities to get involved with training on these things that we're talking about. When we talk about the practice of medicine, it's important to recognize that there's a reason that it's phrased in that way. Medicine, in terms of the science, is the same, regardless of where you are in the world. The muscles are going to be muscles, the tendons will be tendons, the veins will be veins, the physiology will be physiology. Those things do not change. But what changes is the practice. You may come from a part of the world where it is simply enough to identify that this is a sick patient and you have a protocol for managing a sick patient. In another part of the world, it may be that we recognize that this is a sick patient, but we rely on the results of some investigations before we take action. Whichever part of the world you're practicing, it's important to align yourself with the practice that is known to be acceptable so that you're not found wanting. And if you've bought the journal, the Thriving in the NHS journal, you see that one of the sections is the study goals. And this is what this speaks to. In order to improve your knowledge, which consequently improves your confidence and subsequently improves the way you are able to deliver care to your patients, you have to work on your knowledge, and it has to be a conscious effort to develop that knowledge. It can't be a haphazard approach. You're looking at things that if you go to work today and you don't know this thing today, tomorrow you're not going back to work not knowing that thing. Tomorrow when you go back, you've read about it and you will not be found wanting again. It's also useful to know who are the people that you can ask questions to. So I'm very big on asking questions, always ask questions, ask questions. But I had an experience in my first job that taught me that even though you're being free to ask questions, you have to be wise about who you're asking the questions to. So I asked the consultant about diabetes medications for a patient that was going for a hip operation. And the consultant said to me that this was the reason why they weren't confident that I could come off the shadowing period, and I should take some time to think about whether I was qualified for the role, or something equally damning to my, my confidence. And I was thinking to myself, at that point, I felt so terrible. I felt so, all my years of training were a waste. I wasn't good enough. But I realized at that time that actually my question was not answered. So I hadn't gained any knowledge by asking the person that question, but I had put myself in a position where that person could make me feel like less. So you need to identify the people who can actually help and ask those kind of people questions. You need to know the kind of questions that are acceptable for you to be asking. People always say there's no such thing as a stupid question, but there's a time and a place for things. And I will reiterate that you should always ask questions, because the last time you will not know what you're asking is the time you're asking that question. From the time you have the answer to that question, you've grown. So building your knowledge is absolutely key if you're going to take your power back, because you can't be incompetent or be appearing incompetent and be expecting to be treated with the respect that you want to receive. You have to come at it with your A game, especially because you know that people have this expectation of international medical graduates. So you have to have your A game on, and you have to be paying attention to improving yourself. And this leads us nicely into growth. So one of the things that happens is that we come into the system, we feel completely lost, everything is new, we're not sure what we're doing, we get very stressed. And I just thought to reassure everyone that you will grow. Okay, these feelings you have at this point in time where you think that you're the worst doctor, how did I even get here? It will pass, you will grow. And when you grow, be kind to those that are coming behind you. Remember that you were once like them. Be patient in the way you teach, so that we lift others as we climb, and we change this narrative around international medical graduates, sometimes us even being harmful to one another. So be patient with yourself, whether you're starting, transitioning, be patient with yourself and trust the process, because you will definitely grow. It's impossible for any of this growth and progress. Oh, let me not say impossible. It's very unlikely for any of these things to happen without mentors. At every stage, I was lucky and blessed to have people who were able to show me the right steps to take, the direction to travel in. It's useful to find mentors for your journey and to make sure that you are abiding by the guidance that they're giving you. Sometimes it aligns nicely with what you want, sometimes it doesn't, but you need wisdom to know what you're doing. Very crucially, most of my mentors came at a time when I needed them because I sought them out. It's unlikely that you will have a laid back approach to being mentored and get mentored. So if by chance someone sees you and decides to mentor you without you asking, and you don't show any commitment, you don't put any effort into what they're doing with you, it's unlikely that they will continue to put in the effort. So for a lot of the mentoring you receive, you're going to have to be the driver of what you're getting. And it's important to pay attention to that and to put in the effort so they get the best out of it. And in mentoring relationships, it's always nice to think about how you can give back to your mentor, because you can support them as well. Community is indispensable, and the reason why you must find your community is the people that are in your community are people who are like you. So they may be like you in terms of look like you, they may be like you in terms of share similar characteristics with you, share similar aspirations with you, share similar struggles with you. When you have a community, that sense of isolation, that sense of why is this happening to me, that sense of what have I done to deserve this, it goes away, because you're amongst a group of people who have experienced the same thing you're experiencing and who have triumphed through it. So what they do for you is they validate what you're feeling. So you stop feeling like, oh, you're this worthless, crazy person that attracts all this negative energy or whatever it is that is trying to pull you down at that point. Because we're talking about taking back power. So we're not talking about when everything is all nice and rosy. And for those people who things are nice and rosy for, that's really amazing. But for some people, life can get difficult around the job. So we're talking about taking back power in those situations where you are really, really struggling. A community is indispensable. I'm a member of several communities. I receive support, I give support in those communities. In those moments where people are feeling really let down, really confused, you need someone to pick you up. You need the safety netting of that community. And I talk about this in the journal as well. So the community is your safety net. You fall into it, you're picked up, you're put back on the right track. So you absolutely need a community.